G'day and welcome back. Today I'm going to be looking at changing a tyre and removing the rear wheel of a bicycle. Now rear wheels can be the most difficult wheel of a bike to take out because in addition to having the brake to get the tyre past if you don't have disc brakes, you also have the complexity of the rear cogs to make sure that everything kind of works. When you take the wheel out and put the bike back in, it can be hard to line up with the cogs there. So the first step to taking the rear wheel out that you're going to want to do is the chain. So it's in this bottom cog down here. 4 cogs at the front, but it's in the smallest one. So this is the big one, and this one here's the small one. So you want it to be in the small one on the front and the small one on the back. To take the rear wheel out, the best way is to get the bike off the ground. In the case of me, I've hung the seat over this bike stand. You can turn the bike upside down, but if you've got a bike stand, this is the easiest way. Otherwise, like a fence paling or some sort of post or something to hang it over can be helpful. A friend nearby to hold the bike up be helpful as well. Just something to get the rear wheel off the ground so you can change the gears easily. Now, you can see here the chain's in this cog. We want to get it down here, so we're going to change the gears to get it to that cog. Clackety clack. Now we're in the gear we want to be in. So, as far as the gears are concerned, this wheel's ready to take out and we can remove it easily. Now we need to disconnect this brake as well so that the rear wheel can slide out, because right now the tyre won't be able to slide past the brake shoe. So we could disconnect the wheel, but it will be stuck on this brake. So we have to disconnect that. Because this is a cantilever brake, we disconnect it by pulling this section down and then flicking this little bit of cable out. And that sort of comes out, and now the brake's nice and wide and the tyre can sort of move in and out of that freely. It's important to know how to disconnect and reconnect your brakes if you're going to be taking your wheel out, just so you know you've got brakes when you're done and you can reconnect them safely. This particular bike's fitted with a quick release, so this is a quick release lever. Some bikes use a 15mm nut, which you can remove with a spanner instead of this, but bikes fitted with these are really easy to get the wheels out of, and most of mine are fitted with this, except for my track bike. To remove a quick release lever, the rear wheel, just pull the lever out. And with a rear wheel, you shouldn't need to do anything else. The wheel should just fall out. On this particular bike, due to the chain length and derailleur characteristics, the wheel is released for the quick release, but it's stuck on the rear derailleur here. So to get it out further than it's currently sitting, all we need to do is move the body of the derailleur a little bit like that, and the wheel just falls out. And this is kind of a lot of the time you sort of skip through. But if you think of the chain as like a big circle, the rear cogs have to sit inside that circle, which will become more important when we're putting the wheel back in later. This particular bike uses Presto valves. I've already covered their use in the Presto valve video, so what I'm going to do is just let all the air out and skip to the next bit. The first step of removing a tyre is to let the air out. If you have a flat tyre and you have no air in it, you can skip that step. I've now got most of the air out of the tyre. What I'm going to do now is just get as much out as I can, because it's going to make the job of removing the tyre a bit easier. So I'm going to squeeze all the valve and kind of squeeze the tyre as well, just trying to get as much air out as I can. And then I'm going to screw the valve back up just so no air rushes back in. The next step for getting a tyre off, now I've got all the air out of it, is to get the tyre partially off the rim. So to do that, I'm going to use a tyre lever. On a lot of wheels these are optional. On some really tight combinations you might want to use 2 or 3 of them. For this one I'll just demonstrate use of one, because this is a pretty loose sort of combination, and tyre levers can save your hands, so if you do have them at the handy they can be useful. I'm going to start opposite the valve, because the valve is the hardest part usually to crack on a tyre. So I'm going to start just the other side of it. And so I'll take my tyre lever. I'm kind of going to squeeze the tyre together a little bit, just to expose the inside of the rim there. And then I can hook the tyre lever under the tyre. And this is all very gentle because this tyre goes in really easily. And you can see the bead of the tyre there has already popped off the rim. And from there, just keep pushing the tyre lever, go to the side so you can sort of see. Keep pushing until the tyre lever is kind of all the way around. And push a little bit. You don't want to push too hard in your tyre levers. If you're pulling them too hard, you can risk breaking them. So you don't want to push them too hard. The technique is more important. Now you can see I've got a section about that wide where the tyres come off, and I can simply take the tyre lever and kind of work its way around the rest of the tyre. Now some tighter combinations of tyres can be harder to do than this one, so that's where multiple tyre levers comes in and helps you crack that first section of it. So now the tyre's half off, or half the bead's off. The next thing I like to do is take the tube out. So to do that, I'm just going to pull the tyre kind of over a little bit, just so the tube is no longer in the bed of the rim and the tyre's only just on this outside bit. So sort of come round until it's pretty much all off, and you can see at the bottom of the wheel there, that tube is out outside the rim and more inside the tyre. So next thing I like to do is sort of pull the tyre up and around, and then we can carefully pull the tube out. Less carefully if you're not saving the tube. I'm trying to save the tube on this one, so nice and carefully. If you're going to be patching the tube, you want to be nice and gentle as well. And from there, I'm just going to pull the tube out, and we'll set that aside somewhere safe, especially if I'm going to be repatching it. Next thing we want to do is get the tyre off the rest of the way. You can use tyre levers for this step, and I'm going to. So again, just want to expose the bead of the tyre, and it can be helpful sometimes to pick a point of the spokes where you've got a nice sort of wide gap. If you're pushing the tyre lever and colliding with the spoke, it makes it harder to sort of push the tyre lever past that point. So just slide that one on there, get it off nice and gentle. You can see again we've cracked that sort of, I don't know, like 12-inch section of the tyre there. So get off the rest of the way. Great. And now our rim is free of our tyre. Now I picked out my new tyre. The new tyre's a really robust wire bead tyre with some really good puncture protection, so that's why I'm moving to it. When you're choosing tyres, you have to pick an appropriate size. This particular one is a 700, so it's a 700mm tall tyre, and the width of the tyre is approximately 28mm, so that's sort of this section of the tyre. So they'll always be written on it, not always as obviously as this one, and sometimes they're written as 28/622, so that's 28mm width tyre, and the inside, so sort of the bead to the other side of the bead is 622mm, and that's a really common size, and a lot of 29-inch mountain bikes and that sort of thing use that size as well. The other thing you want to be aware of when you're inflating a tyre and fitting a tyre is somewhere on the side of the tyre there will be written a recommended pressure, and this one's probably a little hard to make out, but it says max inflate to 85 psi, so don't go past the recommended, and if there's a minimum pressure on there as well, make sure it's pumped up to the minimum as well. And this particular one says hooked warning, mount on hooked rim types only, and that's the majority of your rims unless you have really fancy non-hooked rims, in which case you're probably mountain biking or got a fancy road bike, and that's kind of the exception. Having a non-hooked rim is quite unusual. So this particular one has a tube already sitting in it, so I'll move that out of the way for the minute, and we'll get started by mounting. So I always like to line up the decal with the valve hole. So in this case the valve hole on this rim's here, and the drive side of the bike, so the side of the bike with the cogs on it, is the right hand side, and some tyres are directional. In this case this one is. So with this particular one we kind of have arrows going in that direction, so the arrows usually go in the forward direction, so this tyre's the wrong way around at the moment, and now the lines are going in this sort of direction. It's not terribly important. If you get it wrong, it's not the end of the earth on these sort of tyres. Some tyre manufacturers are more specific about it. If you get it on the wrong way around in a rush because you have to change tyre in the rain and you don't really want to do it again, you can probably get home on it. And, it's a pretty reasonable thing to be doing. So to get the tyre on the wheel, the first thing we're going to do is turn the camera down a bit so you can see what's going on. And so I always like to start at the bottom. So I have the tyre on the ground, and I'll just hook the bottom of the rim into the tyre, and that just gives me a really good starting point to get the rim all set up. From there, come up to the top, and turn it around so it's a bit easier to see. Just going to hook the top of the rim over as well. If I can do it right. And kind of just walk it around until the tyre is half on. Now that the tyre's hooked on the wheel, I've got that tube here, and the easiest way that I find it is there's kind of that gap in the bottom of the tyre there. So I'll hook the tube into that all the way around, and I'll slide the valve into the valve hole just up here. And just get that tube, and it's worth mentioning as well, this tube's lightly inflated, so it's just makes a circular shape. If the tube's all flat and empty, it's really hard to get mounted. So you're going to want to have just a little bit of air in there, just so it slots in nicely. You don't want so much that the tube's all expanded and massive and impossible to get in. Just a little bit, so it has a bit of a shape to it. It also makes it harder to pinch the tube, where the tube gets stuck between something and you get these little breaks in the tube and you have to try it all over again. Especially problematic if you're only carrying a small number of tubes. In the case of most people, 1 or 2. Now what I'm going to do is roll the tube into the middle of the wheel, middle of the rim. And now the only thing that's holding us up is getting the side of the tyre into the rim. And so the method that I like to use is leave the valve till last. So I'll start over here a little bit, say 12, 13 inches away from the valve, and just kind of ease this one around. Nice and gentle. Cool, and now we're back at the valve. So the last little bit, it can be tempting to use tyre levers for this section. It's best not to, because you can pinch the tube really easily. So it's best to just use your hands where you can, and there's a few techniques that can help with that as well. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get it as far on as you can, and you'll find that this last section is really tricky. So now that the tube is well mounted, you can let a bit of air out of the tube. It's going to make it slightly easier. And then the next thing, which is critical, especially on tubeless wheels, where the tyre doesn't sit deep into the rim very easily, is you go around and you just squeeze the tyre the whole way around. And that's going to make the last bit much easier, because it's going to loosen up the tyre the whole way around. And then all of a sudden it's just going to slip on very easily without all the huffing and puffing you have to do otherwise. And again, just easing it. And I'm not working particularly hard here. I could force it really easily, but then on some tyres you risk damaging them. So you just want it to slot on really gently. And you can see this last little bit. Some people will be like crying by this point. And it's on. And then the final step for the mounting section is just push the valve up and just make sure that section of the tube is moving freely inside the tyre. It's not pinched anywhere, and it's all good. Next thing I'm going to do, this tyre's max rating is about 85, so I'll pump to about a third of that. So I'll put about 30 psi on it, make sure the tyre's mounted nicely, and then take it up to whatever pressure I want. In case of me, I'll run it at about 80 psi. So I'll just put about 30 psi inside the tyre, so I'll just check how it's mounting on the rim. At this stage, we can double check we've got the direction right. So we've got our triangles going in the right direction. Like I said, on the correct side. Our tube valve isn't pointing off at any weird angle. It's nice and straight, so it's not going to break off on us. And what we want to do is just hold the wheel and give it a bit of a spin. And if I can hold this nice and gently, it's running pretty true. And so what that means is the tyre is mounted nicely. If the tyre's kind of rolling around all over the place, that can indicate it's not mounted correctly, and you might need to chuck some extra air in it, or you can get soaps to put on the inside of the bead just to help this tyre sort of snap into place and be in the correct spot. I call this job done. I'll see you back when we're putting the wheel on the bike. Great, so I've got the tyre all pumped up and that's looking fantastic. It's time to put it back in the bike, and this can be one of the most daunting steps for someone changing a rear tube for the first time or re-tyre for the first time. To make sure things go smoothly, what you're going to want to do is make sure the chain is on the cog you took it off to start off with. So it's on this small one on the inside, because that's the one we chose to take it off. And all the chain's not tangled or anything like that. It's kind of following roughly the same path it normally would, kind of that circle. And where we want to put the cogs, I'll pick the wheel up. We want our cog set to end up inside this section of the chain here. We don't want it to be on top inside of this section. We don't want it to be underneath and sort of clogging things up. The cogs need to go inside here, so that then the chain is tensioned like that. So how are we going to do that? That's the thing I sort of focus on first. And remembering that the cog we took it off is this bottom one down here. So that's one has to go back onto. So I'll be lining that one up, in this case, with this top section of chain here, and having it underneath just in there. And that's going to allow for a really easy installation into the bike. And you can virtually not even think about the brakes on this bike. Get this right and things are going to go really smoothly. Let's try it. Might move the drill out away a little bit like we did before to get the wheel out. Just reverse the assembly. I'm just going to guide it up nice and gently. No need to force anything. And I'll just do up the quick release a little bit to start off with. But we'll double check it on the floor, because what can sometimes happen is the wheel doesn't sit in quite square, and that's going to throw your gear adjustment out, it's going to throw your brake adjustment out. So when we get it on the floor, we'll have another go at it. So I've now got the bike out of the stand and back on the floor. So to double check that quick release, all I'm going to do is bring it up a little bit. I'm going to have some weight on the seat with one hand, and then I'll be working on the quick release lever down here with the other hand. Get some more light. Great, so I've got my hand on the seat, and I'm just going to be pulling this quick release out. You can see the wheel slide in a bit more smoothly. Give it a wiggle to make sure it's all the way in. Give it a wiggle, make sure it's all the way in. And then when you're closing the quick release, what you're looking for is a small mark on your hand. You can see just around there when it's closed. You don't want to be smashing it closed with a hammer. You don't want to be pushing it closed with just one finger. You really want it to be nice and secure. And then don't forget your brake. You're going to want that for the bike to work nicely. And one thing you can try, if you have disconnected the rear brake, you're not too sure if it's right, just give the brake a squeeze, and if it doesn't feel right, then you know something's wrong. So in this case, the brake's not working very well, so we've got to do something about that. With this one, just close the brake shut, pull this little thing across, and everything's all perfect, and you're ready and safe to ride. Good luck with changing your first tube, and I hope this helps.